Hi, I'm Tom Hackett, and today we're going to be talking about resizing your photos using tools that are readily available in the Mac system. Now, suppose you've been asked to email a photo for an exhibit or a competition or something, and that the minimum size should be 1,440 pixels or 1440 pixels. Now, that generally means that the longest side, either the width if we're talking about a portrait width if we're talking about a landscape orientation, or height if we're talking about a portrait orientation, should be at least 1,440 pixels. So let's start with the Photos application, which you can find from the Launchpad on your Mac. If it's not there, simply use the Finder to go to Applications and then search through that for Photos. Now here we have the Photos application, and we have a number of photos here. I'm going to start with this photo of the lovely Ashokan Reservoir here in Ulster County, New York. Now I'm going to click to select it and then go up here in the, I guess it's called the menu bar, I don't know, but it's at the top. And we find this letter I with a circle around it so we can get information on this photo. And we see that it is, looking here, it is 8,256 pixels by 5,504 pixels. That's much too big to email. You can see that the size is already 20.5 megabytes. Or if we look at it in the Finder, we'll see that even compressed as a JPEG, it's 13.9 megabits, which, as I said, is probably way too large to send in an email. So going back to photos, we need to reduce this somehow. How can we do that? Well, if we go under the File menu and look at Export, it gives us the option to export one photo. We can see the kind is JPEG, which is how we started out. We want high quality, most likely. The most compatible color profile, which will undoubtedly be sRGB. And we want a custom size. Now, this is a landscape-oriented photograph. So the longest side is going to be the width. Now we know that we've been asked to make it at least 1440 pixels, but there's no reason why we have to limit it to that size here, as long as the resulting file will be small enough to attach to an email. So let's try 2,880 pixels for the width. Now that's quite a bit less than the original size, so we don't have to be concerned about what we call upsizing or upsampling the photo. Here we're actually downsizing by a little bit. So for a file name, I chose a sequential naming system using the prefix Ashokan. Now there are other choices, but we really want to make sure that we don't overwrite the original photo. So we're going to choose a sequence. We say export. And it asks us where we want to export it to. And this is the resizing folder that I created for this exercise. So we'll do it right to there. And export. We get a notification that the export has completed. And now let's once again look at the Finder and see what we have. Okay, there's Ashokan -1 JPEG. And we can see it was just exported and that it is 1.3 megabytes. This is a pretty good size. It's 1/10 of the size of the original here. And you can easily email up to, say, 10 megabytes of attachments. So you could easily get 3 or 4 of these photos into an email. Going back to photos now, we have another photo I'm interested in sending here of the subject here I'll call Red Mills. It's in Claverick, Columbia County, New York. And again, I will click on that photo to highlight it and go up to the eye with a little circle around it to look at the information. Now look at the size here. Again, it's a landscape orientation, so we're concerned with the width, and the width is only 960 pixels. Now we have a little bit of a dilemma, because while photos is great for downsizing images, it really does not upsize. So even if we were to choose File, export one photo, and if we were to use 2880 or 1440 and exported this image with that parameter, it would not grow bigger than the 960 pixel width that it was originally, because, well, photos just won't do that for us. So what will we do? Well, here's our Finder again. We can click on Red Mills JPG, which you see is the original. It's only 318 kilobytes in the compressed JPEG format. So we right-click and choose Open With. Now, the default for JPEG files happens to be this other application called Preview. If that's not the default on your system, then you can click on Other and find it in here. There it is. And then click Open. And here it is in Preview. Now what can we do here? We can go to Tools, Adjust Size. So Preview allows us to increase the size. We see that with this little closed padlock that the aspect ratio is frozen. As we increase one or decrease one, it will increase or decrease the other. Now there are a number of parameters we can use here, but in order to adjust the size, we need to choose pixels. Now, multiplying this by 1.5 will give us 1440, which is the minimum size that was requested. And that's probably going to be just fine. We could go up to maybe 3 times the original size, which would be 2880. But anything larger than that is going to cause serious degradation. But anyway, since the requirement was 1440, I'm just going to put 1440 in here. And we see that the height automatically adjusts to 960. The resolution doesn't really matter because we're specifying the exact number of pixels. Now for this to work, we have to have resample image checked. If we didn't, we couldn't even use pixels as a choice. So make sure the resample image is checked. You've chosen pixels, put in 1440, and that we have not turned off scale proportionally. If we turn that off, we could increase the width without increasing the height. So here we can see that the file has increased in size. So let's save this one out. But we have to be a little bit careful, again, so that we don't overwrite the original file. So the first thing I'm going to do is File, Rename, and just add the suffix -1 to it, and then File, Save. And if we look over at the Finder, we see our new one, Red Mills -1, which again is well within the size that we can add to an email, but now it has a width of 1,440 pixels. So you can see that if we have a photograph that is larger than the requirement, in this case 1440 wide, we can use the Photos application using the export one photo option to export it at a smaller size, namely 1440 for either the width or the height, depending if it is a landscape or a portrait photo. If it is not large enough, if it is less than 1440, we can open the photo in preview and use the tools, adjust size, to increase or upsample it to 1440 pixels wide or high, depending. Remember that if you have to go more than triple the size, then the photograph you have is probably not going to work for this purpose. I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, please email me, tom@tomhackett.photography. That's TomHackettPhotography.com. Until next time, enjoy your photographs.